This episode of Success Through Connections is brought to you by Legacy Realty Group, North Florida. The team that treats your home, your time, and your goals as top priority. Real people, real results, real care.
Well, hi, friends. We're so happy to have you here back at Success Through Connections. And I have a really exciting guest with me today. Her name is Jaime Marco. And Jaime is a recognized keynote speaker, internationally speaking, and she's had her TEDx talk, and she talks to different organizations about, overcoming their challenges and leadership. And that's what I really wanted to talk to her about today. She's got over 20 years of experience helping organizations fulfill their potential. And I love how she likes to challenge leaders with their mindset and enhancing their communication styles. And the fact that Jaime, and one of the things that she sent to me, said that her core belief is that leadership is actually an attitude, not a title. And I couldn't agree with you more. So welcome, Jaime. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad. It's taken us a minute to coordinate our schedules, but I wanted you to know that I listened to your TED Talk, the No More How Are Yous.
Correct.
Yeah, well, I wanted to know really and truly when I listened to that talk, what in the world inspired you for that message? And why is it so timely today?
Sure. First of all, thank you again for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I think what really prompted that message was the fact that I have felt for a very long time that we have never been so connected ever in my lifetime. We have so many ways to connect through apps, through messengers, so many different ways, email and everything we connect. But at the same time, we've never been so disconnected. And I started thinking about, when we actually do come together and we try to connect, we're really lazy. We're lazy and we're lying to each other. And it comes back to that fundamental question of, how are you? And everybody is guilty of asking it multiple, right? There you go. Multiple times. Right. And we say, yeah, fine or good, living the dream. Great. And almost everyone lies about it, or even if you do say good, people just take that at face value, but they don't really dive in deeper to say, well, what is going good today? What is that? And when we take those opportunities just to spend a few more moments in what someone's answer was to find out what it means, we really truly connect with those people and it changes the conversation.
So how should people respond when they say, hey, how are you today?
Well, it's not even, I think, how you should respond. It's on the onus for me of the person asking it. Let's just stop asking it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's just stop asking it.
Instead and ask, what's going on?
Yeah. Or not even that. Just say, hey, listen, what's something you're looking forward to today? Or, what's something that you're working on this week? Or what's something that you're excited about this week? And really start to ask those questions that get people to think a little bit more and share a little bit more rather than fine, good, great, or okay. Really find out that connection point.
And that's truly it. It's more of a connection and it's more authentic and it's building a relationship, not based on, I feel fine today or I'm good or here's what I'm doing. I like that. That's
really, exactly. Yeah.
It's really good. So I know that,
shift, right? That small shift it's that small shift.
Yes.
That can make an incredible impact.
It is. And it's a great way to start to build on a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a great way. Well, I know that you speak on staying positive.
Mm-hmm.
And avoiding depression and getting into, it's like, and a lot of us are in really high pressure environments, especially if you're a business owner, but in anyone who's out there in the world, there's a lot of pressure and stress out there. So what are some of the tools that you use and practice to protect your mental well-being?
Yeah, sure. So I, years ago, over 20 years ago, was having a day like that where I just was really wanted my primal scream, get in the car, cry. And I won't tell the whole story, but it involves me going to the airport and having my breaking point. And I actually was on my hands and knees. I was crying, getting ready to get on an airplane. And this little old man came over to me and he said, you need to shed your funk. You need to just shake it off and shed your funk. And so it was about 7:00 in the morning and I did that. He stood there with me. I shook my hands. I shook my body. I shook my legs. There's a whole story that goes with it. We don't have time for the story. But I did. I started to shed my funk and I'm doing it with this old man. And as I'm doing that, he's laughing. I'm laughing. The TSA agent's laughing. And I have adapted that practice into my life for everything that I do. My daughter knows it. My husband knows it. Everyone that interacts with me knows about the shed your funk practice. And that's the first level, like right there. That is like the first level of just like standing up, shaking it off because you're getting your blood to flow. Your endorphins are moving, and physically that actually does change your attitude. So that's like the one thing that is at the foundation of when I'm having a bad day. So we'll start with that.
I'm going to remember this, Jamie. I want you to know you just had an impact on me. When I'm having a bad day, I'm going to shake that funk right off. It's like,
perfect. Yeah. Shut the funk, shake it off. I always joke that he may have been Taylor Swift's grandfather because she's got that shake it off song. I don't know. It's over 20 years ago. But ultimately, that's like the first piece of it is that just, stopping yourself. We all get emotionally hijacked every day sometimes. And whether that be from what's happening in the world outside of your sphere or inside your world and what's happening to you personally or professionally. And the first piece I do is just to shut it off and realize, listen, this is an opportunity to think about what can I change in this moment right now, right? I think that a lot of people try to focus on those, what can I change over the next 6 months, the 3 months? But for me, it's about right now, what can you do to control, alt, and delete and shift your mindset to refocus on what's really important. And that's just one small part about what I talk about. I like to say that, when we have those little shifts, those little pieces that we can do, they really can make an incredible impact. And one of the things, someone said to me, they said, Jamie, you seem to work in the space between words. And I looked at her and I said, what do you mean by that? And she said, you have this really kind of thing about the energy that you bring. And when you're talking with somebody about helping them refocus their energy. And that's what we're doing when we're shutting our funk or when we're pausing, the power in that pause, it allows you just to collect your thoughts and refocus. And that's like the first foundation piece.
It's, I know I have a lot of technology. Right before we jumped on this podcast, we were talking about how I'm struggling with some technology and it happens a lot. I can't help it. It happens a lot.
I feel you.
But one of the things I'm learning to do is instead of going ballistic, because I used to go ballistic, I just shake the funk off. I never looked at it that way, but now I'm going to be standing up and doing that because it's, it's like, take a breath, take a breath because, yelling and screaming isn't going to do any good. You just have to take a breath, take a minute, walk away, come back.
Yeah. And it's funny. Someone says to me, wow, you're always so positive. And I'm like, well, no, I don't personally believe in having a positive attitude. I don't think that's something that you can coach to. I mean, I understand the negative attitudes. Like we all know those people who are the negative naysayers and they're always, down and out and whatever. I'm never there, but I choose the right attitude. And I recognize that in that moment, it's not about a positive attitude. It's the right attitude for that moment. So, I could have had just everything hitting the fan before we got on this call together today.
Oh, me too.
There we go. But I have the right attitude, wanting to be here, wanting to connect with you, wanting to talk with you. And maybe when we get off, I might go cry in a corner. No, I'm just kidding. Stacy, not today. But that's the thing about it's like thinking about the right attitude for the moment and how you want to show up is a huge piece of moving in the right direction.
Yeah. It's all about that attitude, isn't it?
Yeah,
You get the choice. You get to choose. I wrote that in my first book, Your Attitude. It's like you wake up in the morning, you choose.
You do. It's the only thing that you actually sometimes can choose, right? Like sometimes things are chosen for you, but like those are the decisions that you can make of how you want to show up in this world and how you want to show up today.
And it's like figuring out what you can and what you can't control. I can only control me. I can't control what's happening in the environment and the world or what's going on in your world. I can only control me.
Yeah. It's so funny. So I have a child who is under the age of 10 and they're still trying to I think everyone's still trying to figure out their emotional level they can take, but she will have a meltdown sometimes. And, it can be frustrating to you, but really I was reading this article about when I just bring her in and I say, okay, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay. Let it out. And I just hug her and I say, cry, whatever you need to do. And then let's refocus. But you have to sometimes feel those things and then just pause, refocus. But you do have to let it out. You don't want to hold all that stuff in either, right? You want to let it out, shut the funk, and then let's refocus. So
I have a 5-year-old granddaughter like that. But I think it's her age.
Well, they have big emotions, right? Because they're confusing.
Big emotions.
Yeah. And hey,
they don't know how to deal with them. Yeah.
And a lot of adults don't either. Right? Like, right. So there you go. I like to say that I coach leaders to lead from the inside out with like attitude first and then title second.
Yeah.
And a lot of times some of those emotions want to come out and we refocus that energy into something else.
Well, you are a very successful speaker. I know that you're also a coach and you also have a podcast. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So when was a turning point for you in your journey that you realized that this was your calling to do these things?
That's such a great question. I think that it's just everything evolves over time. One of the things about my business that I've been really grateful for is that every year I think about what's the next thing I want to do, or who do I want to help, or how do I want to guide, or how do I want to grow? And so I think that it's just every year when I have my reflection time and I sit back and I look at the year before and I say, okay, what did I do last year? Who did I help? Now moving forward, what can I do even more of? Where can I focus energy to help even more people? And that's where, the TEDx talk came from. That's where the podcast came from. That's how I started my career off in sales. I navigated from sales to customer experience and then customer experience into leadership. And so every year I'm just trying to grow and develop to help even more people. And I wouldn't say that there's one moment that said, this is what I need to be doing. I think those moments happen every day and all the time for me.
Yeah. You just go with your journey. And you never know. I would have never thought I'm doing all these different things myself. So they just
you're one. Yeah, like look at you and all the things
I'm one to talk. Huh?
There you go. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, don't give me one more idea.
I know
my plate is full.
So it's never full, right? It's like move the peas over.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I thought was so interesting is something we had in common was you co-host your podcast with your dad. Now, when I started podcasting, which was back when there was no podcast, it was called Blog Talk Radio. Okay. And that was the precursor to podcasting. But my son was the one who started the podcasting.
Oh, wow.
And I just thought it was so interesting that then I sort of joined him and it evolved. He's no longer doing podcasting, but I really liked doing it with him. It was a lot of fun. Ours was all about real estate because that's what we do, real estate. But how has that come about that you're doing this podcast with your dad? What have you learned from working with your father?
When it comes to buying, selling, or managing rental property, don't settle. Choose the professional team that's experienced, knowledgeable, and yes, they actually answer the phone. Legacy Realty Group North Florida is the full-service real estate firm that delivers peace of mind. With over 16 years of local expertise, their responsive and dedicated team makes the process smooth, personal, and stress-free. Whether you're selling your home or looking for a reliable property manager, Legacy Realty Group North Florida has you covered. You'll find their info right in the show notes.
My dad has been such an incredible mentor for me. Both my parents have for a very long time. And the podcast came about because he was helping me prepare for my TEDx talk. And I was sharing with him different stories and we just started talking, and he's retired now. And I meet with the people. I go play pickleball with him and my mom, and I meet the people he lives with, and I'm like fascinated by their stories. And I just started talking with my dad about things we can do. And it came up to start just learning people's stories. My dad and I talk about how we are always so fascinated by celebrities, but the real fascinating people are the people that live in our everyday lives that we talk to and the things that they're doing and they're accomplishing. So we just had this crazy idea to start doing it. And selfishly, it was something that I get to do with my dad, and it's going to be online forever. It's a legacy that my daughter will be able to watch, her kids will be able to watch, and hopefully YouTube and all that stuff stays on for many years. But it has been so incredible I've learned so much about my dad. He's learned about me. We learn so much from our guests. And it's such a special time for me when we sit down and we have our conversations that I love it. And then I actually go back and I listen to every episode, and it's just, listen, we don't know how long we have anyone in our lives for. And it's the moments I'm going to cherish the most. I absolutely just adore it. And we get to learn something new every time too.
I can so relate to that. I live in a 55 community. Yeah. And so I was with the neighbors a couple of weeks ago when they were saying, tell us about your podcast. I was telling them about it and telling them some of the stories from some of the guests. And they said, well, the neighbor over here used to be a judge, and this one was a CIA agent, and this one, and they're filled with incredible stories. And I keep saying, I need to get those neighbors on the podcast because just your neighbors alone. You don't need the celebrities like you were saying. Your own neighbors have incredibly fascinating stories.
Yes. You might live in my parents' neighborhood. No, I'm just kidding. We're having the same stores, but it's true. Like, I think that's the thing. Also, one of the things we started doing was working with one of our local senior living facilities where they have centennials there. And so we're speaking to them about, they're like 100, 101, 102. And those stories sometimes aren't told. And so we get to able to share the videos and share the podcasts with their families as well, too.
Yes.
So, I was able to capture my grandmother years ago before she passed. And it's my favorite videos, just asking her those simple questions about what was your favorite childhood toy, or what did you do, or what did you love? And that prompted us as well, too, about the fact that we have that. So why not provide that for others as well? That's part of where the conversation came.
That's so great. Love that. Love it. What's your podcast called?
What's Your Story with Jamie and Stan?
Cool. And I'll try to put that in the notes here, the show notes.
Yeah,
so I know that you coached people through some really big transformations. And is there one client that maybe one story that really stands out with you, that really moved you or changed you?
There's so many, I've actually, so in front of me, you can't see it, but in front of me, I have a massive bulletin board, and it's all these thank you cards around there. I love thank you cards. I coach to that, like always write handwritten thank you cards. And I'm just looking at some of those stories, but I would probably say most recently, I had an individual who had gone through a 3-part series coaching program with me and asked afterwards, and they had said, I'm really struggling figuring out who I am. I'm trying to figure out who I am. Everyone always says, know your goals, know this. And they were really struggling trying to figure out who they were and what their goals were, what their core values were. And, listen, we're all so very different. And this person was, I think, I don't know how old anyone is, but I would say probably 40s or 50s. So lived a long life of trying to figure out their core values. So we started a coaching session. We just started chatting. After our first session, had some things implemented, came back to the second session. And when I tell you, they walked in a completely different person, I was almost taken back by just the swagger of coming in. And I said, wow. And they said, you wouldn't believe, Jamie, we just talked about like 2 to 3 things to start to incorporate into my world. And I've done them and I feel completely different in a better way, right? And I said, I could see it. I see the confidence in you. I see the change. And then we started talking about what had happened. And it was just a 2-week time span of what had happened in that 2-week time span. I can't even tell you, Zelda, it was, for me, like, I coach to help people, but to see this transformation, it was incredible. And we've got another session coming up in a week. And it reminds me, because I got an email this morning from them as well, too. But that's why I do what I do, is to help people find their path, help them identify things that maybe have just been blocked for a long time or hidden in the silence and the quiet parts of our world that we don't always have someone to talk to about. And I help them identify those areas. And while I come from a place, I'm not a life coach, I'm a leadership coach and a leadership development coach. But really, sometimes those paths merge together.
Yeah,
I always like to say, you don't come to my class and figure out who you are as a leader. You come and figure out who you are as a person, because it's not just a switch you turn on. You're really fundamentally changing the way that you communicate and the way that you show up. And that would be one of my greatest success stories.
So it's interesting when you said this, when you shared the story, I thought the first thing that came to my mind was imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I think, in fact, I led a group of women, about 20 women recently, in a discussion group, and that was the topic. And I asked the women, I said, is there anybody here who has never experienced imposter syndrome? Never experienced. Well, everybody raised their hand. I mean, nobody raised their hand. They're all like, no, we've all experienced it, except for one person. One person said, I've never experienced it. I just, okay, whatever. But have you ever experienced that imposter syndrome? Have you ever struggled with it? And how do you coach others through that feeling? It's basically, to me, it's about confidence, but it could be more than that. So I'm just curious if you've experienced it, or your coaching clients maybe have experienced it, and how do you get them through that?
Yeah. I like to think of it as a humility thing, not so much like, I think you realize that you can always improve yourself. Like, I don't think that I will ever be at a place where I'm like, I'm perfect and I don't have to do anything. And I'm going to show, and I'm the best speaker in the world. And I'm the best mother in the world. I'm the best wife, the best daughter. I think that's like that. If you feel that way, great. But I always like to say, listen, well, you can join me for my humility course, on this date. But I think that is like, the thing is that we all, I just try to do something even better each day. And I tell people that if you're coming up with imposter syndrome, just forget it. Like everyone feels that way. You know, I have a good friend who once was sharing a fact that Oprah Winfrey, obviously we all know who Oprah is. Hopefully you do. I actually just watched her, talking about Gail going to the moon today or going to space today.
Right.
She once said that after every show she did, interviewing actors, politicians, world leaders, everybody asked the same question when they came off the stage and they were done recording. And the question was, how did I do? Every single person asked that question. And so I think that it's okay to think to yourself, listen, I want to make sure I'm doing my best. And it's okay to be nervous. I always tell speakers, if you walk on a stage and you're not nervous, you should probably find a new career, because those nerves are actually excitement. Those nerves mean that you care. Those nerves mean that you are, thinking about what you're doing and you are consciously focused on the important aspect of what you're doing as a leader. And so for me, I don't necessarily believe in imposter syndrome. I believe that we can all think about, how can we be even better at what we're doing, and realizing that we don't have to be perfect because no one's defined it yet. And just being like the best version of yourself.
I recently had a friend who is a professional speaker, and believe me, she is all over the world speaking. And she asked, and I saw her speaking at some event. I don't even remember what it was or when it was, but she was speaking. And as she got off, here, I'm the rookie. Okay. I'm the rookie. And she looked at me, she said, Zelda, how did I do? And I was like, I was taken aback that this polished speaker was asking this rookie, how did I do? I'm like, you did fabulous.
And that's the thing, is that like everybody does it.
Yeah.
Everybody asks those questions. And, as I am raising a daughter and trying to get her in this world, and we're doing some fun things that we'll be announcing in a few months together in regards to leadership. But as I do that, I realize that, listen, it's okay to not feel confident all of the time.
Yeah.
Right. As long as you're just doing you. And I would say no one does you better than you. So just be you. Ask for help. Let's normalize asking for help. Let's normalize that it's okay that we don't think we're perfect. Let's normalize feeling that, nervous on stage. Those are things that means that you care. And it's when you stop caring that those feelings go away. And then who wants to speak to you anyway?
It's kind of like when you make a mistake, that's how you learn.
Yeah.
When you're not sure when you follow others and you learn, and that's how you grow. That's where the growth happens, not with the stuff that you already know.
Right. And like, listen, we are in a world where people are really leaning into a lot of AI, with they're adding filters to themselves, and they're changing them. They're trying to look differently. They're trying to all this kind of stuff. And I think that is one of the problems when you talk about connection, that we've had such a mental health crisis around, because people don't feel like they're good enough because what they're doing is being filtered. And, I had someone with our podcast, we're unfiltered. I might say 1,000 times. I might sneeze. I might scratch my nose, because the more that we get back to just being real humans, and I believe in AI technology for things who use it. It's great. It helps you normalize time, or not normalize, it helps you with time and be more efficient, but still just being a real person is so essential.
Yeah. Don't lose that connection with people and being real.
Yes.
That's tough. I don't want to get off on that subject, because I feel like the next generation, or rather like your daughter and that generation, is going to really be missing out if they can't learn how to make real connections with people.
Yeah. One little
devices and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest parts of it is that when I was a child, I would pick up the phone in elementary and middle school and high school. I would call my friends and I'd say, Mr. or Mrs. Brown, can I talk to, whoever?
Yes.
I have to do that. That doesn't happen anymore. We don't do that, and I don't want to give a cell phone to my child. And so it's now the parents that are coordinating those play dates versus the kids doing it. So We've done it to them. We've done this to the next generations. And so I'm really trying to get back to old school ways and navigating that.
Good for you. Good for you. So what's the one habit or ritual that you swear by to keep your energy and your mindset so strong?
Oh, gosh. So I shed my funk. I dance a lot. I'm always dancing, finding music and dancing a lot. And then let's see, I don't think there is one. I think every day is a little bit different outside of those two constants in my life. And just like I said, showing up with the right attitude. There are times where, if I don't feel like I should be peopling, I will stay away from people until I can feel that energy. People have enough going on, and I don't want to be infectious of that bad crud.
Yes.
So I think knowing when you need a quiet moment and knowing when you can be out and interacting is a really good way to bring the right stuff to the table.
Yeah, that's shake off that funk.
Shed the funk.
I
Shed
love
the
it.
funk,
Learn
Zelda.
something
Shed the
new today.
funk.
I can't wait. I can't
Yeah, I
wait to
love
have some
it.
funk to shake off.
Hey, I have clients who message me. I told my 3-year-old this morning to shed the funk. It happens all the time, and I want that to spread. So I love it. So
I love it. I think that is just so awesome, Jamie. I love that. You should be using that everywhere. So
Oh,
speaking
I
of these,
do.
and speaking of everywhere, I have a signature question that I like to ask all my guests, and it's about our podcast is called Success Through Connections. I
Mhm.
believe that people are successful because they have connections. Someone either gave them a connection or you gave someone else a connection. So can you
Yeah.
share with us an incident or a story of how some sort of a connection that you made opened up an opportunity for you, or how you maybe opened up an opportunity to someone else through those connections?
Yeah, sure. So I've got two. Do I have time to share two?
Yeah, you do. Yes,
Uh,
you do.
so I think one would be, years ago, I'm probably talking about 10 years ago, I met a leader of a local chamber and we became friends, and I was volunteering and I was on that chamber and I was, doing what I could. I was donating time. I was speaking. I was doing stuff, and we really just became this incredible friendship. And that was so amazing. That person has become one of my biggest cheerleaders and what I like to call one of my board members. And board member being that I believe everyone should have board members as part of your personal brand that you go to, you ask questions. And that connection has come back and just been incredible for me. She has been so supportive and has just introduced me to new people. It's built new programs, new opportunities. And that was just me volunteering my time years ago, wanting to help to build my community. And it turned into an incredible friendship. And so that is one thing that I will say I'm so committed to. I volunteer as much as I possibly can. I think at one point, my parents, they lived in the same community. They were like, "Are you like a brand ambassador for our community? We see you at every event. You're doing all these things." But
Yeah,
I do it because I
as a
really
matter.
want to help. Yeah. But I really want to help. And then in turn, it incredibly helped me build my business. But the other one was I was on a red eye flight home one time and I was exhausted and I had to change flights 6 a.m. after flying all night. Didn't sleep well. I get on my 6 a.m. flight to finally come home and I sit down. I'm ready just to go back or try to sleep for the last hour and 45 minutes. And a gentleman sits down next to me and he asks me a question. And right then and there, I knew, okay, I could either put my headphones in and be like, "Sorry, I'm going to sleep," or engage. And because naturally who I am is not ignoring people, I engaged. I was exhausted. I was so tired. I wanted to just put my headphones in and go to sleep. But we talked. We were the only two people, I think, talking on that plane for the entire hour and 45 minutes. Incredible human, just amazing conversation that we just engaged. We exchanged cards. I just did it because I was like, you never thought he asked who I was, business, this and that. He was retired, never thought anything would ever come of it. About 3 years later, I got a phone call about a project. And I always ask, "Well, how did you hear of me?" And they heard of me from that gentleman, and it became one of my largest contracts to date.
Really?
So it's such a crazy story that I didn't talk to him because I wanted business out of it. I didn't talk to him because I thought 3 years later, who could know? I can't tell the future. Believe me, if I could, I would do a lot of things differently. But it was just about seeing somebody and talking and not ignoring it and making that connection. And that's what life's about. Why else are we here?
Yeah, that is so awesome. Well, I am so thankful for you giving up your time. It took us a minute to coordinate our schedules, but I'm so glad you did. So, Jamie, for our listeners, if they want to connect with you, how can they find you?
Yeah. So go old school, pick up the phone and call me 941-777-4930. Or you can go to my website, jaimemarco.com, JAIMEMARCO.com. I'm also on Instagram and I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn as well too. So on Instagram, it's Jaime Speaks. And then on Facebook, I believe it's Jaime Speaks as well. And LinkedIn is Jaime Marco.
Again, thank you so much. This has been very enlightening. It's been a lot of fun talking to you. And so I look forward to meeting you.
Ditto.
Someday
In person, right? I want to give you a hug. And
Yes, in person. I want to see you in person. So thank you again, Jamie, for being with us at Success Through Connections.
This is Success Through Connections, where small talk leads to big wins. Today's episode was brought to you by Up Until Now, the company helping you master the art of networking.